A casual afternoon in a suburban neighborhood shatters when an entitled white neighbor calls the police on an innocent black boy. The boy's calm composure collides with the neighbor's veiled hostility. One disrespectful comment lights the fuse, but the boy's final words foreshadow the storm. "That's about to arrive with his father. We don't need your kind hanging around here." The screen door banged behind Mrs. Margie Holloway as she stepped onto her perfectly trimmed front lawn, her phone clutched like a weapon. The sun glared down on the neat row of identical houses, sprinklers ticking in sync. Behind her curtains, nosy neighbors peeked out a human chain of whispers ready to ripple down the block. 12-year-old Malik stood frozen on the sidewalk, a cheap plastic basketball tucked under his arm, sweat dripping down the side of his temple. He'd been dribbling at the cul-de-sac court all afternoon, just 2 doors down from his own house, but Margie liked to think the street belonged to her. "You deaf, or just slow?" she sneered, voice louder than the cicadas buzzing in the hedges. "I said this isn't your playground." Malik's eyes flicked to her porch, where a faded garden gnome smirked at him. He squeezed the basketball tighter. His mum's voice echoed in his head. "Always keep your head down, baby, always." Margie's face pinched tighter as she dialed 3 numbers with relish. "Yes, I'd like to report a suspicious person loitering in our neighborhood." "Yes, suspicious dark clothes, acting strange, send someone fast." Inside the houses, blinds rustled. Mr. Dawn from across the street leaned on his mailbox, pretending to check letters that didn't exist. Mrs. Riley's yappy dog barked behind her screen door. The neighborhood was watching, but silent. Always silent. Malik's lips parted. "I live here." Margie laughed, sharp as broken glass. "Prove it." He took a step back, eyes dropping to the sidewalk cracks. His sneakers squeaked as he shifted weight. A single bead of sweat slipped off his brow and landed on her white stone pathway. A stain she'd scrub clean later. Margie crossed her arms, phone still pressed to her ear. "Yes, officer, he's still here, just staring at me, threatening, I'd say." Malik looked her straight in the eye for the first time. Inside his chest, his heart was a trapped bird. But his face stayed still, his mum's training calm, dignified. Let them show themselves. A police cruiser rolled into view at the end of the block. Lights, but no siren. Quiet, polite, almost neighborly. Malik could hear the engine purring. Like a cat about to pounce, Margie's smile curled smug and thin. "See, this is what happens when you people don't know your place." The words hit him like a slap. He could feel every neighbor's eyes crawling on him now, all their half-hidden faces behind drapes and blinds. The sky seemed too big, too open. A flicker of something, not fear, sparked in Malik's chest. He bounced the basketball once. The sound cracked through the hush like a gunshot. Margie flinched, her pearl earrings trembling. "Watch it," she snapped. He let the ball roll into her azalea bush, then he straightened his shoulders, brushed sweat off his brow with the back of his hand, and spoke so calmly that Margie leaned in to catch it. "My dad's on his way," Malik said, voice smooth like the hush before thunder. "You're gonna wish you never opened your mouth." The police cruiser's doors clicked open. Margie's triumphant grin faltered for just a second, a hairline fracture in her confidence as Malik stood taller than she'd ever imagined. A breeze rustled the neat hedges as if the whole street were holding its breath. The cruiser's lights painted Margie's hydrangeas in pulses of red and blue. Officer Daniels stepped out, sunglasses reflecting Malik's small frame. He took in the scene like a man who'd seen it 1,000 times, and always chose the same side. Margie's face softened instantly. "Oh, thank goodness you're here, officer. I was so scared he wouldn't leave my yard." Daniels nodded like her words were scripture. He glanced at Malik with the sort of look you use for stray dogs or broken glass on the road. "You got ID, kid?" Daniels asked. Malik's hands stayed planted on his basketball shorts. "I live right there," he said, nodding at the blue house across the street. The curtains in his living room shifted. His mum was watching, too afraid to step out yet. She knew this dance too well. Margie's voice dripped sugar. "He's been casing the houses. Up to no good." I've never seen him before. Malik felt a heat rise behind his ears. Never seen me. He'd mowed her lawn last summer for $5 she never paid. Daniel stepped closer, a hand on his belt. Son, I'm gonna need you to stay right there. Malik looked at the cop's hand, the way it hovered near the holster. He did what his mum taught him: no sudden moves. Keep your voice low, keep your eyes down. I just came from the park, I was playing ball. Daniel sniffed, eyes flicking to Margie. He give you any trouble, ma'am? She pressed her palms to her chest, like a tragic heroine. I told him to leave, he threatened me. Malik's mouth dropped open, but no sound came out. The lie coiled in his gut, like a snake. Across the street, Mr. Dawn turned his back and pretended to rake invisible leaves. Mrs. Riley's dog still barked, a shrill soundtrack to the quiet injustice unfolding. Daniels stepped closer, so close. Malik could see sweat beading under his hat brim. You carrying anything you shouldn't be carrying? Malik almost laughed. Almost. He lifted his hands, palms out, empty, except for leftover sweat and the ghost of that bounced basketball. No, sir. Margie crossed her arms, tilting her chin up. Search him if you need to, he's been lurking. Daniels circled Malik like a shark. The boy's heartbeat hammered so hard, it almost drowned out the hum of a car engine rolling up the street, steady, deliberate. Malik's eyes flicked up. A black SUV crawled around the cul-de-sac bend. For the first time, a spark of relief cut through his fear. Officer Daniels noticed it too. Someone you know. Malik didn't answer. He didn't have to. The SUV rolled to a stop behind the cruiser. The engine ticked as it shut off. The neighborhood paused, all the blinds pulled back in perfect synchrony. The driver's door opened. A polished black dress shoe hit the asphalt, then another. Margie squinted, trying to see past the flashing lights. Who's that? Malik didn't move. His lips parted just enough for a single name to slip out. Part prayer, part warning. Dad. Daniels turned, shifting his weight, posture stiffening with sudden awareness. Something about the crisp suit stepping out of the SUV didn't fit the narrative he'd prepared. Margie sucked in a breath. She opened her mouth to say something clever, but nothing came out. Malik lowered his hands, heart still rattling, but steadier now. His father's silhouette grew clearer under the streetlight, tall, immaculately dressed, walking with the slow, unhurried stride of a man who knew exactly how much power he carried. Daniels cleared his throat, palm drifting away. From his belt at last, Margie took a nervous step back onto her porch. Her garden gnome watched in frozen amusement. Malik felt the knot in his chest loosen just enough to breathe again. And as his father stepped closer, the quiet hum of the neighborhood shifted, the wind carrying the promise that, this time, things wouldn't go the way Margie thought they would. Elijah Lewis didn't rush. He didn't have to. His footsteps on the warm asphalt were the loudest thing in the world for Margie Holloway. He paused by his son first. One hand on Malik's shoulder, steady and warm, a father's anchor in a storm, designed to swallow boys whole. Malik felt his lungs open properly for the first time in 10 minutes. You, okay, son? Elijah asked, eyes never leaving the officer. Malik nodded, words too tangled to find his tongue. The basketball sat abandoned under Margie's bush like a witness. Officer, Daniels cleared his throat. Sir, this your son? Elijah's eyebrows lifted a fraction, the sort of look that made grown men in boardrooms rethink entire sentences. He didn't bother answering right away. Instead, he knelt, eye level with Malik. You good? Elijah asked again, softer this time. Malik nodded. Elijah stood. Only then did he acknowledge Daniels. Yes, he's my son. Is there a reason you're detaining him on his own street? Daniels shifted, suddenly aware of how many eyes were peeking through curtains. He gestured toward Margie, who hovered like a ghost at the edge of her porch light. There was a call about suspicious behavior. Elijah tilted his head. Just enough for the officer to taste the weight of his calm. And what was suspicious? That he was playing basketball, Margie piped up, voice brittle but trying for righteous. He was loitering. He refused to leave my yard. He was threatening. Elijah repeated, voice so smooth it made Margie hesitate. Daniels pulled at his collar. Ma'am says she felt unsafe. Elijah turned to face Margie fully now. His gaze pinned her like a butterfly on a board. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. You've met my son before, haven't you? Last summer, he mowed your lawn. You still owe him $10, I believe. Margie's mouth opened and closed like a fish caught on dry land. Somewhere behind her, a curtain twitched. People were listening. Everyone was listening. Daniels frowned. At her, ma'am, is that true? Margie's face flushed red to the roots of her bleached hair. That's irrelevant. Elijah stepped closer to Daniels.com, but unmovable. Officer, are you detaining him? Or should we all go inside and enjoy our evening? Daniels hesitated, eyes darting between Margie's pale face and the tall man in the pressed suit who radiated lawsuits and headlines. No, sir, just responding to the call. Then you're done here, Elijah said, final as a slammed door. He shifted his hand from Moloch's shoulder to his own pocket, drawing out his phone. The shiny corner of a business card peeked from the wallet. He made sure Daniel saw it. Margie's eyes darted to the card like it was a snake. I'll be filing a formal complaint, Elijah said evenly, for the harassment and the false report. You should start writing yours up, to Mrs. Holloway. Margie's throat bobbed. I was protecting my neighborhood from a child, Elijah finished for her. He didn't look at her again. He turned to Malik instead, smoothing a hand over his son's back. Get your ball, son. Malik moved toward the bush. His fingers closed around the cheap plastic sphere. It felt heavier now, like it mattered. Daniels cleared his throat one last time. Sorry for the trouble, sir. Elijah didn't answer him. He just kept his eyes on Malik, making sure his son saw him seeing the truth of all of this. Margie shrank back into her porch light. For the first time, she realized the neighborhood wasn't just watching Malik anymore. They were watching her. And in that watchful hush, the seeds of doubt began to grow quiet and poisonous, eating at her perfect lawn from the roots up. After the cruiser rolled away, its blue lights faded down the block, but the street stayed frozen in a hush thick enough to choke on. Margie lingered by her porch steps, arms folded tight across her chest, lips pinched like she was swallowing poison. She brewed herself. She could feel eyes on her, Mrs. Riley, pretending to walk her dog. Mr. Dawn sweeping the same patch of driveway for the third time that day. Malik stood next to Elijah, holding the basketball against his ribs. His palms were sweaty, but the grip felt steadier with his father beside him. The front door of the Lewis house opened. Out stepped Tasha Moloch's mother, in a soft blue sundress, sandals quiet on the concrete path. She didn't rush either. Her calm was different from Elijah's, no sharp edges, just steady water carving stone. She placed a gentle hand on Moloch's cheek first, her eyes flicking over him for invisible wounds. You good, baby? She asked. He nodded, and her shoulders softened a fraction. Then she looked up at Elijah. What's her story? Tasha asked, eyes flicking toward Margie without actually looking at her. Elijah kept his eyes on Margie too. But he answered his wife. Same story, it's always been. Margie stepped forward, forced a tight smile. Now hold on, there's no need to turn this into a spectacle. I just did what any responsible neighbor would. Tasha's laugh cut the air like wind through brittle leaves. It wasn't loud, but it stung. She turned her body slightly, shielding Malik from Margie's eyes as if the woman's stare alone might bruise him. You called the cops on a child for playing ball in his own neighborhood. Responsible, Tasha said softly, voice dipped in honey and acid at once. Margie opened her mouth, but the words tangled on her tongue. She saw Mrs. Riley on the curb, pretending to check her mailbox. Saw the McKennas peeking from behind their minivan. The whole street was watching, and this time they weren't just nodding along. Elijah slipped his phone out again, tapping the screen like he was bored. You know, Margie, I have a friend at the city paper. They love stories about community heroes. Margie's eyes widened. This doesn't need to get blown out of proportion. Tasha tilted her head. No, you didn't think twice about blowing it up when you dialed 911, did you? Malik shifted closer to his father, pressing his shoulder against Elijah's side. He could feel the tension in the air, the way Margie's forced smile was cracking at the edges, the way neighbors whispered without words. Mr. Dawn called out half-heartedly, "Everything all right over there?" Elijah didn't even glance at him. He kept his eyes pinned to Margie's. "It will be," Elijah said calmly, "after Mrs. Holloway here files a statement retracting her lie and apologizes to my son." Margie's mouth twitched. She looked ready to spit venom, but nothing came out. The mask was slipping, her perfect neighborhood queen act dissolving under porch lights and watchful eyes. Tasha's voice dropped to a hush only Malik could hear. "They always show you who they are, baby. All you gotta do is remember." Malik's fingers curled around the basketball tighter. He wanted to speak, to shout something, but he held it in. His father's calm was heavier than any anger. It filled the space and made Margie look small. I'll think about it," Margie stammered. She turned for her door, her garden gnome smirking at her feet like it knew her secrets. Elijah didn't watch her retreat. He turned to Malik instead, one eyebrow raised. "You hungry?" he asked, voice shifting instantly from steel to warm velvet in a heartbeat. Malik nodded, a laugh bubbling up despite the knot in his stomach. "Yeah." Tasha kissed the top of Malik's head. She kept her eyes on her husband. "We done here?" "For now," Elijah said, slipping his arm around her shoulders. He looked back once, just once, at the neighbors watching from shadows. A silent promise drifted down the block. This wasn't over. 2 days later, the neighborhood was pretending to move on. Kids riding bikes, sprinklers spinning, dogs barking at delivery trucks. But under the surface, every conversation still circled the same story. Margie Holloway called the cops on that Lewis boy. Margie knew her throne was cracking. So she knocked on the Lewis's door just after dinner. Her hair pinned up, pearls back in place, a fresh pie trembling in her hands like a peace offering. Tasha answered first. She didn't move aside to let Margie in, just leaned on the doorframe. With a polite half-dash smile, "Mrs. Holloway," Tasha said, tone syrupy. "To what do we owe the pleasure?" Margie cleared her throat. "I wanted to come by personally. To smooth things over. Maybe we could talk inside." Before Tasha could answer, Elijah appeared behind her, sleeves rolled up, tie gone, power still humming around him like an invisible suit of armor. "Everything you need to say can be said right here," Elijah said. His voice a calm while Margie's fake charm bounced right off. Malik hovered behind his father's leg, peeking out, like he was watching a stage play. He'd never seen grown-ups perform this dance up close, the fake smiles, the invisible knives. Margie's eyes darted around, 2 kids on bikes, slowed to watch. Mr. Dawn's front door was cracked just enough for his wife's eyes to peek out. Margie forced a bright, brittle laugh. "I just wanted to say, I'm sorry for the misunderstanding. I thought your boy was someone else. You know how it is." Tasha's eyebrow arched so high, it could have cut glass. "How is it exactly, Margie?" Margie ignored her, zeroing in on Elijah. "It was a simple mistake. No harm done. In the end, right?" Elijah's smile was polite, razor-thin. "You called the police on a child for playing basketball. You lied about him threatening you. You wanted him gone because he made you uncomfortable." Margie bristled. "I didn't lie. Did you tell the officer you'd never seen him before?" Elijah asked, voice low but clear enough for the kids on bikes to hear. "Did you tell him he threatened you?" Margie's mouth snapped shut. Her pie tipped a little, cherries sliding toward the crust's edge. "Because the officer's body cam caught every word," Elijah continued. "So did the neighbors on their phones. So if you're here to apologize, do it properly." My lips parted, but the words stuck. She glanced over Elijah's shoulder, hoping for an audience that might nod along, but Tasha's sharp smile told her that no rescue was coming. "I'm sorry," Margie mumbled. The pie trembled, like her hands. "For what, exactly?" Tasha asked sweetly. Margie swallowed, her voice cracked. "For calling the police, for lying, for embarrassing your family." Elijah tilted his head. And my son. Margie's eyes darted to Malik. For the first time, she actually looked at him, small, wide-eyed, no threat at all. Just a boy holding a basketball behind his father's legs. "I'm sorry, Malik," she said. The words fell out like teeth. "It won't happen again." Malik didn't say anything. He didn't need to. He just watched her like he was learning. A lesson more valuable than anything in his school books. "Thank you for the pie," Tasha said, her tone making it clear they'd never taste a bite of it. "Have a good night, Mrs. Holloway." Margie forced a smile that cracked at the edges. She handed the pie over like she was surrendering something sacred, then backed down the steps. The screen door clicked shut. Tasha carried the pie to the kitchen, dumped it straight into the trash. Malik watched Elijah. "Why'd you make her say it like that?" Elijah crouched, one hand on Malik's shoulder. "Because people like her count on silence. They count on shame. But when you make them say it out loud, their lie dies in the light." Malik nodded slowly, the lesson sinking deeper than his father's words. Outside, Margie walked back across the street, her neighbor's blinds closing just a heartbeat too late. Her apology echoed behind her, hollow, fragile, but the real reckoning was still on the horizon. The morning after Margie's doorstep performance, the sun rose like nothing happened, but the street didn't feel the same. Mrs. Riley walked her little dog past the Lewis house twice, eyes flicking to the front door every time. Kids on bikes zipped by slower, waiting to see if Malik would come out to play. Inside. Malik sat at the kitchen table, pushing dry cereal around his bowl. He could hear his parents in the living room. Low voices that carried sharp edges he wasn't meant to hear. "She thinks that apology fixes it." Tasha's voice, sharper than he'd ever heard. "They're talking, Eli." Dawn told Riley she's worried this'll ruin Margie's reputation. As if Malik's just a footnote. Elijah's reply was a quiet rumble. "Let them talk. They're showing us who they are, and what about Malik?" Tasha snapped back. "He has to live on this street. Play on this street. Go to that school where Dawn's wife works, the front desk." Their voices dropped again. But the weight of it stayed pressed against Malik's ribs. He slipped out the back door with his basketball tucked under one arm, the morning sun warm on his shoulders. At the end of the driveway, he stopped. Two kids from the block, Jace and Theo, slowed their bikes when they saw him. Jace lifted a hand. Theo didn't. "You come into the park?" Jace asked. Malik shrugged. "Maybe." Theo looked anywhere but at Malik's eyes. "My mom said we shouldn't get involved." Malik's throat tightened. "Involved in what?" Theo's face turned red. He pedaled off, Jace calling after him but not really trying to stop him. Malik bounced his ball once. The sound cracked the quiet. He looked up the street. Margie's porch empty, her curtains drawn tight. The same hydrangeas, the same garden gnome, but everything felt different. Now, he dribbled down the sidewalk toward the cul-de-sac hoop. The rim was bent, the paint cracked, a tiny stage where this whole mess had started. He shot a lazy free throw, missed, picked up the ball, shot again. Behind him, footsteps, not heavy like his dad's, lighter, hesitant. He turned to see Mr. Dawn standing there, keys jangling in one hand. "Hey Malik," Dawn said, clearing his throat. "Your dad home?" Malik nodded, one hand still spinning the ball on his palm. Dawn hesitated, then shuffled closer like he was scared to be. "Seen here, listen kid, about the other day, folks are saying Margie didn't mean no harm. She's just old-fashioned, you know." Dawn's voice dropped to a conspiratorial hush. "Might be best if your dad let it go. Keep the peace." Malik didn't answer. He just stared at the old man, feeling something in his chest harden. Like drying cement. Dawn patted his shoulder, an awkward heavy hand that meant nothing. "You're a good kid," Dawn said. "We're all neighbors here. Gotta look out for each other, right?" He shuffled off, whistling like he'd just dropped off a friendly package instead of poison. Malik watched him go. Then bounced the ball hard enough it nearly slipped from his grip. He grabbed it, teeth clenched, breath shallow. He didn't know what to say. But later, over dinner, he found the words anyway. They want you to stop, he told Elijah, pushing his plate away, untouched. They want you to let it go. Elijah looked at his son for a long time, eyes deep, steady, unflinching. He reached across the table, placed his big hand over Moloch's smaller one. Do you want me to let it go? Elijah asked, voice so calm it scared Moloch more than shouting ever could. Moloch swallowed, shook his head, no. Elijah's smile was small, sharp at the corners. Then we won't. Outside, the sprinklers hissed over perfect lawns and white fences, but under that polite trickle, a storm was gathering, quiet, patient, ready. It started with a flyer slipped into every mailbox on Magnolia Court white paper, black ink, nothing fancy. Neighborhood safety discussion, Friday, 6 p.m. Lewis residents, all are welcome. No one said no, out loud, but the next 3 days hummed with quiet arguments behind closed doors. Tasha heard Mrs. Dawn on the phone hissing, he can't just call a meeting like he runs the block. But she didn't say anything. She just kept slipping extra folding chairs onto the porch. When Friday came, the sun was just dipping behind the roofs, staining the street gold and pink. Elijah set up in the driveway 2 rows of mismatched chairs, a cooler of sodas for the fake comfort of it. Moloch sat on the porch steps, basketball wedged under his knees, heart thudding. One by one, the neighbors drifted over. Some tried to look casual, like they'd just wandered by. Others clumped together, whispering until they reached the chairs. Margie arrived last, wearing a cardigan and a tight smile, her husband trailing behind her like an afterthought. Welcomed everyone with cookies and the sharp edge of her kindness. Moloch watched her float between the guests' polite nods, soft laughs, but her eyes always found Elijah's. They were a team tonight. Stronger than any fence line. Elijah didn't raise his voice when he started. He didn't stand on a soapbox. He just sat in a folding chair at the front, elbows on his knees. Voice calm enough to pin everyone right where they sat. Thank you for coming. I know folks don't like trouble on their street. He paused, letting the silence stretch until it was too tight to breathe. But sometimes, trouble shows you exactly where you live. Margie shifted in her seat. Her husband stared at his shoes. Elijah kept going. We all saw what happened last week. My son, a child, was treated like a threat on his own block. And to many of you, he let his eyes sweep across familiar faces. Chose silence. Mrs. Dawn's throat bobbed. Mr. Riley's wife tugged her cardigan sleeves over her wrists. Margie forced a brittle laugh. We're all here now. Elijah, can't we move on? He tilted his head, that quiet weight that made grown men fold in boardrooms and courtrooms alike. Move on to where, Margie? Back to pretending. Back to you feeling comfortable enough to lie to police. A hush settled like dust. Moloch felt it in his bones. The shift, the way even kids riding by on scooters slowed to listen. Margie's face tightened, but she tried again. I made my apology. We're neighbors, we should focus on real threats. Moloch felt his father's stillness. The way Elijah let her hang herself with her own rope. Define real threats for me, Margie, Elijah said softly. Because the only threat here seems to be a boy with a basketball, and a truth that makes you squirm. Murmurs flickered through the folding chairs, tiny fires catching dry grass. Someone in the back, Mr. McKenna, cleared his throat. Elijah's right. My kid plays with Moloch. He's never felt unsafe. Margie twisted in her chair. Oh, so now I'm the villain. No, Elijah said, and for a heartbeat, it almost sounded kind. You're just what this street made you. But now you can't hide it behind birthday cards and yard sales. Stepped forward then, her hand resting on Elijah's shoulder. This isn't about hate mail or lawsuits or reporters at your door. It's about what happens next time. And the time after that. Moloch watched Margie's eyes flick around, searching for backup, finding only downturned gazes. Her husband finally spoke, voice small. Maybe we should let them finish. Elijah nodded once, a quiet king on a cracked driveway. Throng. We're done pretending. We'll protect our boy. And if any one of you thinks you can stand by silent again, just know the whole block will remember who stayed quiet. He didn't yell, he didn't point fingers. But when Malik looked around, he saw it in their faces, the discomfort, the shame, the cracks forming under perfect lawns and polite smiles. For the first time, he didn't feel small. He felt bigger than the driveway, bigger than the whispering hedges. Margie clutched her purse in her lap, like a shield she knew wouldn't save her this time. And somewhere deep inside, Malik's fear folded itself into something new, resolve. The next Monday, the street didn't greet Margie Holloway with friendly nods like it used to. When she walked her trash cans to the curb, Mrs. Riley crossed the street without saying hello. Mr. Dawn suddenly didn't need help with his gutters anymore. Even her husband avoided her eyes when he left for work. Inside her spotless kitchen, Margie replayed Elijah's calm words like a curse. "We're done pretending." The neighborhood was done pretending too. She spent her morning at the window, watching for signs they'd moved on. But the street was busy with tiny betrayals. Tasha waved to passing cars, cars that waved back. Elijah mowed the lawn while neighbors paused to say, "Good job." Malik shot hoops at the cul-de-sac net. 3 boys with him this time, instead of alone. It was as if the whole block had flipped sides overnight. She called Mrs. Dawn, but the conversation was cold. "I'm sorry, Margie. I just think maybe you should lie low for a while." Margie bit her tongue, until it nearly bled. Meanwhile, Malik felt the shift to how some grown-ups smiled wider at him at the park. How Jace's mum brought juice boxes for everyone. How Theo's mother waved from her porch, then ducked back inside before he could wave back. At dinner, Malik asked Elijah, "Why are they nice now?" Elijah poured sweet tea into his glass, slow and steady. "Because they're afraid of what it looks like if they're not." Tasha shot him a look, part sad, part proud. "That's not the same thing as respect, baby," she told Malik. "Don't mistake it." That night, Elijah sat in his study under the warm yellow lamp, tapping at his laptop keys, while Tasha read through a stack of mail. Malik lingered at the door, pretending to play with the light switch. "Dad?" Malik asked. Elijah paused, lifted his eyes. "Yeah, son, are you gonna sue her?" Tasha looked up sharply. Elijah's mouth twitched, not quite a smile, not quite a frown. He folded his hands in his lap. "Maybe," he said. "Sometimes people only learn when it costs them something they thought they owned forever." Malik tilted his head. "Like what?" Elijah leaned back in his chair. "Reputation, comfort, the feeling that they're untouchable." Tasha stood and wrapped her arms around Malik's shoulders from behind. "That's why we stand up, baby, not to crush them, but to remind them they're not above truth." The next morning, a letter arrived in Margie's mailbox, thick envelope, heavy paper. Inside was a notice. Formal defamation complaint, possible civil suit for false report and emotional distress. She read it twice, hands trembling. She thought about ripping it up, then remembered the neighborhood meeting. The folding chairs. Elijah's quiet voice, the silence of her own husband as he signed for the delivery. Across the street, Malik dribbled his ball under the rising sun, sneakers squeaking on the driveway. He caught her watching. For a second, their eyes locked, predator and prey. But she wasn't the hunter anymore. Margie shut her curtains, but the neighborhood had already seen her, seen who she was, when no one was clapping, and she could feel it, the crack in her crown, spreading like a fault line under manicured grass. That night, her phone buzzed with messages. "Mrs. Dawn again. Maybe you should apologize properly this time. He's serious." Margie typed a reply. "I did apologize, but deleted it before she hit send." For the first time in years, she felt small on her own street. Not because of a boy with a basketball, but because the people she counted on to nod along were nodding elsewhere now. Toward the Lewis family's porch, where the porch light glowed warm over real neighbors, real backbone. And when she lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, she didn't hear sirens or children playing. She heard her own voice from that day on the cop's body cam, a cold lie she couldn't take back. 2 weeks later, the neighborhood mailboxes filled with more than coupons and pizza flyers. Each house got a letter printed on crisp white paper. From the Lewis family's lawyer, polite but clear, a formal statement about the incident. The false police report, the body cam evidence, the impact on Malik, no threats, just facts, laid out like chess pieces on a board. Malik watched from the porch as neighbors opened them at their mailboxes, heads bent, brows furrowed. Some looked toward the Lewis house after reading eyes softer than they'd been in years. Others looked at Margie's place with tight-lipped frowns, like they'd only just now seen the rotting under the white paint. Margie found her copy wedged between an overdue water bill and a gardening catalogue. She read it twice, the words blurring. She could taste the dry panic in her mouth, the taste of a fight she was too used to winning without. Lifting a finger, this time, the finger was pointed at her, and the gloves were still on. By dusk, her phone buzzed again and again. Saw the letter. "You okay?" From Mrs. Dawn. "Maybe you should call him, clear this up." From Mr. Riley. She threw her phone on the couch. It slid between the cushions like it wanted to disappear. Outside, Elijah and Tasha sat on their porch swing, the creak of the chain soft under the hum of crickets. Malik sat cross-legged on the steps, the basketball tucked under his chin. "Why'd you send it to everybody?" Malik asked. His voice cracked a little, half child, half something older that he didn't have a name for yet. Elijah's arm draped over Tasha's shoulder. He didn't smile, didn't gloat. Just answered in that same steady tone that never wavered, even when Margie had spat her fake fear at his son's back. "Truth doesn't live in whispers," he said. "If you want to break a lie, you drag it into daylight." Tasha squeezed his hand. "They'll call us troublemakers, you know that?" Elijah turned to her with the ghost of a grin. "Let them. It's harder to call you a troublemaker when the trouble's the truth." Malik leaned his chin on his knees, watching a pair of kids ride by on scooters. One of them, Theo, lifted a hand. This time he didn't look away. Across the street, Margie's porch light flicked on, then off. Then on again, a jittery beacon in a house that had never felt so cold inside. She stood at her front window, phone clutched to her chest like a shield, watching the Lewis family like they were a storm she could hold back with wishful thinking. Inside, her husband sat hunched at the kitchen table, the lawyer's letter spread out in front of him. He didn't look at her when she asked, "What do we do?" He just shrugged, the same useless shrug he gave when the garden hose leaked or the taxes piled up. Margie pulled her cardigan tighter, pacing the hallway like the walls might give her an answer. The echo of her own footsteps was the only reply. By morning, the block was buzzing. Whispers turned into cautious nods when they passed Malik shooting hoops. A pair of high school kids offered him the ball first. Even Mrs. Dawn managed an awkward smile when she pulled into her driveway, though she wouldn't quite meet Tasha's eyes. Malik dribbled slow circles on the cracked asphalt, the echoes bouncing off painted fences that suddenly didn't look so clean. At dinner, he asked, "Is this how it ends?" Elijah rested his fork on his plate, folded his hands. "No. This is how it changes." Tasha touched Malik's cheek, thumb brushing a bit of sauce from his chin. "People think reputation is built by what you say about yourself. It's really built by what people say when you're not around." She's learning that the hard way. That night, Margie typed out a long, careful post for the neighborhood Facebook group. She called it a clarification. She told herself it was an explanation, a misunderstanding, taken out of context, spun by busybodies. She hit post and watched the first few likes roll in, but by sunrise, the comments had turned polite, then pointed, then cold. "You lied, he's a child." We all saw it. Margie shut her laptop and stared out the window at the street she'd once ruled with lemonade stands and neighborhood watch emails. And for the first time in 20 years, Magnolia Court didn't feel like hers anymore. On a warm Saturday, Magnolia Court looked almost normal again. Lawnmowers hummed, kids rode bikes, sprinklers spun rainbows in the sun. But under the green lawns and polite smiles, something had shifted for good. Malik shot hoops at the cracked rim near the cul-de-sac, the same spot where Margie's lie had first cracked open. This time, though, he wasn't alone. Jace, Theo, And 2 other boys were there too, laughing, calling fouls, passing the ball without a second thought. On the sidewalk nearby, Elijah stood with Tasha, arms folded, watching their son play under the bright sky he'd earned back inch by inch. Across the street, Margie's door swung open. She stepped out, hair done, cardigan crisp, lips painted to red for morning light. In her hand, a stack of fresh printed flyers, neighborhood safety, take back our block. She walked from mailbox to mailbox, slipping one inside each metal door like she was planting seeds for a garden she thought might still grow. But at Mollick's hoop, Jace's mum caught sight of her first. She stepped off her porch, crossed her arms. Mrs. Dawn did the same, a few doors down. Mr. Riley's wife came out too. No more pretend excuses. No more polite silence. Margie moved stiffly, ignoring the eyes, pressing on with her paper crusade. When she reached the Lewis mailbox, she paused. She could feel Tasha's eyes, feel Elijah's calm shadow, feel Mollick's laughter floating through the warm air like music she wasn't invited to hear. She hesitated, then stuffed the last flyer in anyway. She turned to go, but froze when Elijah stepped forward. He didn't block her, didn't touch her, just held out the paper she'd just dropped. "You forgot this," he said, voice so gentle, it made her flinch. Margie opened her mouth to say something clever, a deflection, an excuse, a plea, but the words dried up. She looked at the street instead, hoping for nods, backup, polite sympathy, but no one moved. No one met her eyes. Elijah held the paper out until she had to take it. When she did, his hand fell back to his side. Calm, unbothered, unshakable. "We're good here, Margie," he said. "Your block is safe." Behind him, Tasha let out a soft laugh that only Malik could hear from the hoop. It sounded like a door clicking shut on the past. Margie's face folded at the edges. For a second, she almost looked older than the house. Behind her, a cracked statue in a garden that no longer belonged to her. She turned away without another word. Walked back across the street, clutching her flyers to her chest like a child with broken toys. Malik watched it all, the calm, the silence, the quiet justice that didn't need sirens or fists. Just truth, just patience, just a man standing still, until the lie fell apart on its own. He bounced the ball once, twice, passed it to Theo, who caught it with an easy grin. "Game point," Jace called out. Malik dribbled, pivoted, drove to the rim. The net rattled on the final shot, sharp and clean. The boys shouted, laughing, slapping hands. Elijah turned back to Tasha. She rested her head against his shoulder. Eyes soft with something Malik didn't have a word for yet, but he knew he'd remember it every time he heard a basketball echo off that cracked driveway. For the first time, Malik felt it down in his bones. The block was his too. His home, his street. His game. No whispered lie could chase him off this asphalt again. No fake smile could push him to the shadows. Not when the truth had roots deeper than any garden gnome or fresh-cut hedge. He dribbled back to the top of the drive. Looked over his shoulder at his father, calm, quiet, undefeated, and knew exactly who he wanted to be when he grew up. Someone who didn't raise his voice to fight. Someone who let the truth do the heavy lifting. Someone who could stand on his own street and say without saying a word, "I belong here."